After 15 years of marriage, I found out I'd been raising my brother's kid. When I confronted my wife, she said, "Don't ruin everything we have over one mistake." So I made sure there was nothing left to ruin. My son Connor was 14. He was my whole world. I coached his baseball team, drove him to school every morning, helped him with homework every night. I was the dad who showed up to everything. Every game, every concert, every parent-teacher conference. My wife Hannah stayed home for the first 10 years raising Connor and then went back to work part-time at a dental office. We had a good life, not flashy, but stable. I made sure of that. My brother Dean lived 2 hours away. He came around for holidays, birthdays, the occasional weekend visit. He was the fun uncle. Always brought Connor something. Always roughhousing with him in the backyard. Always the first to say how great a kid he was. I never questioned it. Then my mom got sick. She needed a kidney. The doctors tested everyone in the family to see who was a match. I wasn't. Dean wasn't. But during the process, the hospital ran blood work on all of us, and something came back that didn't make sense. The doctor pulled me aside and said there was a genetic marker situation he wanted to clarify. He asked if Connor was biologically mine. I said, of course. He said the blood work suggested otherwise. He said based on the markers, it was more likely that Connor's biological father was a close male relative of mine. I felt the floor shift. I drove home and didn't say a word to anyone. I sat with it for 2 days. I couldn't eat. I couldn't look at Hannah without feeling like I was going to be sick. On the third day, I told her I needed to talk. I sat her down and said, "The hospital found something in the blood work. Connor isn't mine." She stared at me. Then her eyes filled up and she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "The genetics don't match. Connor's biological father is a close male relative. I only have one brother." She put her hands over her face. I waited. She didn't deny it. After a full minute, she said, "It happened once." I said, "When?" She said, "About a year before Connor was born. You and I were going through that rough patch. You were working 70-hour weeks and I was alone all the time. Dean came to visit while you were on a business trip." I said, "And you slept with my brother?" She said, "I was lonely. It was one night. I regretted it the second it was over. I never thought anything would come of it." I said, "Something came of it. He's 14 and he calls me dad." She started sobbing. She said, "You are his dad. You raised him. You taught him everything. Biology doesn't change that." I said, "It changes everything. Every memory I have with him now has your lie underneath it." I said, "Did Dean know?" She looked away. I said, "Did he know?" She said, "I told him when I found out I was pregnant. He said it was probably yours and that we should just leave it alone." I said, "He's known for 15 years. She said, "He was scared." We both were. I said, "You were scared." I was oblivious. I was raising another man's child and that man sat across from me at Thanksgiving every year and shook my hand. She reached for me and said, "Please don't ruin everything we have over one mistake." I pulled my hand back. I said, "One mistake. You lied to me for 15 years. Dean lied to me for 15 years. Every holiday, every birthday, every time he came into my house and played with my son, he was looking at his own kid and laughing in my face." She said, "He wasn't laughing. He felt terrible." I said, "Not terrible enough to tell me." I called Dean that night. He picked up on the second ring and I said, "I know about Connor." He didn't say anything for 5 seconds. Then he said, "Listen, let me explain." I said, "There's nothing to explain. You slept with my wife and let me raise your son for 15 years. He said, "I wanted to tell you every single time I saw you." Hannah begged me not to. She said it would destroy the family. I said, "And keeping it a secret was better? Watching me change his diapers, take him to his first day of school, sit in hospital waiting rooms when he broke his arm?" He said, "I know it looks bad." I said, "It doesn't look bad. It is bad. You're his father, and you let me do the work while you showed up twice a year with a baseball glove." He started crying. I hung up. I filed for divorce the next morning. Hannah's parents called me and said I was being rash. Her mom said, "Every marriage has rough patches. You can get through this." I said, "Your daughter slept with my brother and let me believe his son was mine for 15 years. This isn't a rough patch." The divorce went through 8 months later. Dean tried reaching out once through a letter. I didn't open it.